Welcome back, and this time we'll be putting some colour on the hands and on the face. And this is always an interesting time to get the person to look like a believable person and an interesting person. But again, let's hear the story of Joseph of Arimathea from Luke's Gospel.
Now there was a good and righteous man named Joseph, who, though a member of the council, had not agreed to their plan and action. He came from the Jewish town of Arimathea, and he was waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down, wrapped it in a linen cloth, and laid it in a rock-hewn tomb where no one had ever been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. Now I've mixed several pigments together to make this flesh tone. It's mainly golden ochre, which is quite a translucent pigment, and obviously a yellow hue, and then added a very, very, very small amount of Ercolano red. I'm applying it with a flat brush. It's again a very fine Kolinsky brush, but it's very broad, so that these coats go on quite smoothly, coat after coat, like last time, so that we can still see the shadows underneath, but I don't want to obliterate the facial features in quite the same way as I nearly obliterated the now here's an interesting thing I suddenly thought of, that the dark shadow lines in the shroud were far too dark. So because I had the brush in hand and also had the white mix, I diluted it right down and did a glaze to soften those folds, and it has made it look much more believable. And back to putting more. That was a little job that I did while the face and hands were drying. Now I've added to the golden ochre and Ercolano red, again that favourite and ubiquitous pigment, titanium white. Just a tiny bit to start on the highlights. On the face, always start on the nose. It sticks out the most, so it's going to always have the next shade or the next highlight. No matter how bright it goes, the nose will always score. Above the eyebrow and into the forehead, the top of the eyelid, then into the top of the cheek, and the chin. A little bit more white, but the coverage much less, so that it starts to shape the hand, get the knuckles going. Hands are difficult, I find them hard to do. Unlike faces, they can be moved in all sorts of different directions, so there isn't sort of a stock standard way of doing hands really. And that, again, back to the face, and always starting with the nose, well, I do anyway, tiny bit above the eye, into the top of the cheek, not covering as much as I did last time, blending it down so that it get those ears highlighted, and the bottom lip. Even more titanium white. Again, very sparing, just showing up where the light will be hitting the skin most obviously, getting the hand to look three-dimensional instead of just flat. Thinking of the bone structure is always helpful, because that's what the body is built on, particularly in the face. Thinking of the bone structure, the skull that everything sits on. Otherwise we might forget that we've got to have light hitting the top of the brow bone. This is quite light now, and so we get quite a good contrast, see, in the forehead, where just putting a couple of highlighted lines in gets a furrow in the brow. That line above the brow was far too dark, and that's been evened out now. Now I've gone back to the flesh mix and watered it down and given it a glaze, and it just softens it all, blending it all much better, tying it all together. Some of the darker pigment in with the flesh tone, putting in some of those shadings again. It's a bit heavy at this stage. That will need to be evened out and made to look less like he's got a black eye. This is not quite pure white, but it's getting pretty close to very strong titanium white, and there we've used that to knock back some of that shading so it looks less hollow. Back to the hand, giving a bit of definition on the fingers. Now with a burnt umber, make the features of the face more obvious. Get the iris of the eye in and the pupil. Make sure we know that that's an ear. Make those shadows a bit more obvious. Get that furrow in the brow working, and the eyebrows. And just softened off the brows. Now that the eyebrows are done in black, and so now the pupils of the eye have gone in black. Now the whites of the eye is titanium white. How obvious would that be? But mixed with a little bit of raw umber green for the eyes, but now it's pure white being applied to just one side of the iris, but the same side, and it takes the stare away from looking at the beholder, the person looking, and just throws the eye over the shoulder a bit. Straight white here for these highlights. Top of the top lip. When we come back next time, we will look after his hair and beard.